and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Born of the Gods here from Valencia, Spain. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Zach Hill. Round one. This is the first one. This is going to kick everything off, set the tone potentially for the entire weekend for these players. Here's William Huey Jensen, his opponent, Nico Bohny, coming from a very strong EU-based team. You know, they're kind of German, Austrian, Swiss, and here they go. So turn one. Land from both players. No one drop from Huey. We know he has two favorite hoplite in his deck,
Tom Martell,
but we don't see one
Fireball's
here.
newest team, the Pantheon.
And we have
Tom, talk a little
Loyal
bit
Pegasus
about,
there for Nico Bohny.
I can hear programming this thing. Yeah, and see the Pegasus basically unanswered. Bohny, by the third turn, still no plays. Not really where you want to be in this format.
Now, Huey's going to kick things off with a Nyxborn Shield Mate bestowed. But you know what? Nico says, you know, I don't want to start taking any damage in the air at all. And he's going to fire off Dissolve here, Zach.
Yeah, and a 1/1 flyer, a whole lot worse than a 2/3. I mean, the clock is just cut in half. Plus, you see Bohny passing with 3 mana up, no plays, probably representing some type of counterspell. You kind of just need to cast that Dissolve, or you're going to be having to represent 3 mana for the rest of the game.
All right, and he gets to follow up with a nice 4-drop here. And remember, he gets that Scry ability, too, to perhaps hit land drops or whatever from Dissolve. But he finds Nylea's Disciple, which is going to bump his life total up a couple of points, and, well, just put a better clock than his opponent has.
All right, and we see that Pegasus, man, it
was destined for great things, and now it's all of a sudden a 3/3 with flying. And Huey, you know, his deck is very aggressive. He's likely looking to race here. His hand right now consists of 3 lands and a lightning strike, but boom, Voyage's End for Nico Bohny sends the poor little horsey right back to Huey Jensen's hand, gets him a scry, and also knocks that aura right off of it. So big play from Nico Bohny there.
Huge play from Bohny, and you've got to think he's in a pretty commanding position at this board state. I mean, his creature is just naturally bigger than all the creatures that Huey is doing all this work to make large.
That's right.
And, you know, Bohny just attacking away with the Centaur, and Billy, not that many cards in his deck that are good at stabilizing the board.
That's right. It looks like he's going to have potentially double Pegasus here. There they are, twins. So he's managed to mount a bit of an offensive here, though not a particularly impressive one until he gets some bestow going on those, or maybe gets a few friends to start flying there. Wow, Prognostic Sphinx off the top here for Nico Bohny. He even has the mana to cast that this turn if he wants. Boom, there it is. 3/5 with flying and a slew of special abilities, including the word Scry 3. Love that. You got to love that ability. And here's a Farragax Giant for Huey Jensen. This is where Farragax Giant is at its worst. Nico Bohny has tons of options. He can just be like, sure, I'll take the 5. You have a 3/3. Who cares? He can just let him have a 5/5 if he wants. And he really does have the ability now to be fully flexible with it. The best for Farragax Giant is when it comes down after a quick start and really puts the opponent to a tough decision, because if they can't justify taking the 5 damage, then they're going to be facing down a big threat. And I think that Nico took it there. I don't think he paid tribute.
Yeah, I think you just have to take the damage there. I mean, there's no reason to give your opponent a 5/5. You're commanding. You have a commanding lead on board. You've got a 3/5 that can block the 3/3 if you want. You've got a 3/3 you can hold back to block it, and you might as well just keep clocking your opponent in the air. Those Pegasus really not representing much of a threat right now.
Not at all. Now, Prognostic Sphinx is going to attack because, as you can see, Scry 3 is going to trigger and allow Nico Bohny to really sculpt his hand as we go forward. He shipped 2 cards to the bottom of his deck there, and he put 1 on top, meaning that he's going to get sort of the best possible draw, and he gets it right now, thanks to Fate Foretold. I think it was just a forest that he wanted. And he's going to play the forest. And does he have a 4-drop? No, he does.
It looks like he's got a
play.
Griptide in his hand.
I think he's actually got.
Is it tap 2 creatures?
Tap 2 creatures.
Oh man, one of the premier cards out of Born of the Gods.
Really, you think it's that good?
Matai Zadokai was telling me he thought it was the 2nd best blue common.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a pretty bold assertion.
It's called Sudden Storm.
Sudden Storm.
I think he actually might have 2 of them in his hand. All right, so here's Lightning Strike to take down, well, potentially to take down. Oh, but Nico Bohny has Immortal's Resolve to save it. And Nylea's Disciple is going to survive Lightning Strike, and things are looking very good for Nico Bohny from this stretch. There's an Akroan Skyguard for Huey, so he's able to build out his board in a reasonable fashion, but not an exciting one here. All right, so Nico's taking a look at his hand here. I believe he has 2 Sudden Storm and a land in hand.
Yeah, a pair of Sudden Storms to just a mountain from Huey. And Sudden Storm, I mean, if there was any way that Bohny would fall behind, preventing him from doing that, and you see him just go all in on the offensive right here, he knows that he can protect himself. The Scry 3 from Prognostic Sphinx, just absolutely huge.
What a backbreaker.
Yeah, I mean, that basically ensures that once you have 7 lands out like Bohny does, you're just going to draw spells for the rest of the game. And
you see an Area Worshippers, there's also a Mnemonic Wall, and I can't quite tell what that middle card is, but, you know, the question is, like, is Nico going to fire? Wow, kept all 3 on top. If you're sitting in Huey's seat, you just have to be like, great. And the damage gets through. Nico willing to trade for Farragax Giant. Doesn't happen.
And Nico Bohny, I mean, 2 Sudden Storm in his hand and Mnemonic Wall to get them back. I mean, Billy's not going to be attacking for any meaningful amount of damage anytime soon.
Right. Nico passes a turn back, and then during upkeep is going to cast Sudden Storm. Remember, he gets another Scry 1 out of the deal, but he already knows all 3 cards on top of his library. Taps down Farragax Giant and Akroan Skyguard. And it looks like he's trying to set up for the victory next turn. If Huey doesn't find some type of creature here, Nico gets to untap, play his other Sudden Storm, and win the game on the spot.
Yeah, and that's probably exactly what's going to happen with Billy at 5 and only a pair of blockers to play defense.
Yeah, interesting here for Huey as things are looking terrible for him. He sees that Nico's left up blue, colorless again, perhaps representing another counterspell, though he doesn't get to test the waters as he's unfortunately just ripped a plains for his turn. He's carefully deciding how he wants to approach the game. You know, Huey's not one to scoop the game prematurely. He won't concede. And he just attacks for 1 and passes turn back. So Nico Bohny, if he decides to go for it here, will pick up the victory in game 1. And he just actually doesn't see the need. He's like, look, if you want to chump block, go for it. He also can do his Sudden Storm after attacks if he chooses.
Right, and I mean, there's no reason to give your opponent more information about your deck if you feel like you're in a commanding enough position anyway. Plus, you know, Billy's got 2 cards in his hand, 6 mana open.
And doesn't do anything.
And doesn't do it, right, exactly. There's no need to get ahead of yourself if you've got a board position that's this strong. I guess the only thing that you could be walking into is like Fated Retribution, something like that, but not exactly what's in Billy's hand right now.
That's true, though. That is a consideration. So Nico actually does take a bit of risk there because he could close out the game or at least go for it, but it's pretty minimal risk. He gets back Voyage's End, and Huey sees the writing on the wall and is going to scoop it up. So Nico Bohny takes the first game versus William Huey Jensen.
Yeah, I mean, and a really just commanding presence from Bohny from the time he cast that Dissolve to the remainder of the game. You know, Billy's Pegasus just could never get bigger than 1/1, was able to apply no pressure.
All right, so we're going to send you guys to a few brief messages, and we'll be right back after those.
Is the place to go for all your Magic accessories. With card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios showing off the best Magic art, Ultra Pro is the standard in safe storage. Visit ultrapro.com for more information. Play Magic at a store near you every Friday. Earn Planeswalker points and battle against your friends in Friday Night Magic. February's FNM promo card is Elvish Mystic. Visit wizards.com/FNM for more information.
Here at Pro Tour Born of the Gods, Marshall Sutcliffe with Zach Hill. It looks like we might be taking a peek over at one of our other tables, Ole Roddy versus Craig Wesco. We're going to see if we can get the cameras over there for those. But meanwhile, Nico Bohny versus William Huey Jensen. Pretty convincing game 1 there. Huey just didn't quite get the momentum he needed.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things people talk about with the red-white archetype, the red-white heroic archetype. Really fast, really powerful deck, can do some explosive things, but if you're not able to establish a board presence early on in the game, really not a lot you can do when you fall behind.
Yeah, you know, one of the things we noted right away was he goes plains nothing. And so, you know, we would like to see a favorite hoplite there. All right, so we have Ole Roddy versus Wesco. We're just doing a quick look in here. We're just going to, wow, that is a pretty impressive board state, though. I do see for Ole Roddy, he has an archetype of imagination, which is going to give all of his creatures flying, and maybe this is lethal damage. We won't have life totals, but it looks like a pretty convincing swing of events there in Ole Roddy's favor, though. to the shock of absolutely nobody, we have Craig Wesco playing a white-based deck, in this case, red-white. But if you notice, only white permanents on the battlefield for him right now.
Only white permanents in accord with Wesco's preference for aggressive white decks. I mean, Wesco's board, 3 very, very good cards.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, 100-handed one. That's a Wingsteed Rider, a Hopeful Eidolon. But you really want that Eidolon to be attached to that Wingsteed Rider, not on the board by itself. And this might be a quick game if Uli is able to attack for that much damage again next turn.
No kidding. And as we see from our back tables as well, quick update, Paulo Vitor Damaderosa, he is playing against Zeman Gutsen. He's up 1 game in that match.
Yeah, PV, we haven't seen that many dominant performance from this past season. This might
not until last weekend.
Yeah, well, yeah, after he snuck into 8th place. But yeah, this might be building momentum for this Pro Tour.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've talked to PV quite a bit, and he's done interviews and such, and said, look, I mean, I didn't have a great year, but I'm looking to get back. And so, what better way than winning your first game of the Pro Tour, which is what he's already done. All right, I'm going to assume that Ole Rade picked up the victory there. But I have to say, though, just from what we saw in Craig Wesco's hand and on the battlefield there, his deck looks good.
Yeah, his deck looks really good.
Yeah, he was taking all the other stuff that Huey wasn't able to pick up, so they kind of probably split that. All right, so it looks like there's a feature match area. You can see really sweet backdrop there. Look at that. Those gods, they're huge. Like if you go down there, they're massive, really awesome.
The feature match area done up a little bit differently. Normally we have planeswalkers back there, but I guess we wanted to show off Xenagos and all of his bare-chested glory.
I mean, what better at Pro Tour Born of the Gods than to put the gods back there? felt like a necessary move. All right, let's take a look over at one of our other tables as well. We have the ability to just sort of pop in. This looks like it's Willie Adel versus Camille Cornelissen. And this one looks a lot less developed. There's a Marsh Titan and a Flesh Mad Steed for Willie, but a pretty stacked graveyard. It looks like there's been a lot of tussling here in what seems to be, so it's blue-black versus green-black. So similar strategies in this format.
I see the use of Meletus Astronomer there. That's been from Camille's side. That's been one of the cards that's really overperformed for me.
Has it really?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, it's a 1/3, and you're saying, okay, well, how many enchantments am I going to have? But when you try to make that card work,
he's kind of going off here. Look at this. He just put a Cavern Lampad on it, and he's searching. Oh, he bricked here, though.
Oh, okay.
So we'll keep an eye on these side matches for you and be bringing you guys updates as we go through the matches, but it looks like we're underway here. And there's a Voyage's End sitting on the battlefield. It must have bounced maybe a favored Hoplite or something along those lines?
Yeah, we can take a look at Huey's hand there. I think it was the Centaur, 3/2 for 3. Just kind of buying Bohny some time.
Okay.
Again, you do not want to let the red-white aggressive deck get off to a fast start, and sometimes that means you have to use your bounce spells even if they put you down a card, just to save some pressure.
All right, and Huey's going to keep maximum pressure on here. His Traveling Philosopher is going to pick up that Eidolon, and he's going to get a pump. So Everflame Eidolon gives the Traveling Philosopher the fire-breathing ability, and that's going to get in for a little bit of damage here.
And that's a well-timed Eidolon for Jensen. I think if you're Nico, you might have actually just blocked with the 2/2 flyer there. I mean, we see multiple, sudden, whatever the card that taps it in, the sudden storm.
Sudden storm.
And Mnemonic Walls, you've got to assume that you're winning the game if it goes long. You just want to make sure not to die. So the Eidolon there allowing Jensen to crack in for 4 points of damage, gain a lot of initiative here very early in the game.
Yeah, he was able to attack for 3 this turn, but he could attack for up to 5 just with that one creature next turn. All right, now this could change things significantly. Here's Airy Worshippers for Nico Bohny. So this is our first real inspired card of the tournament here. If Airy Worshippers untaps, you get to play 2 and a blue mana, and you get to make a 2/2 flying enchantment creature token, which is absolutely insane. It's, we call those Windrakes for short, right? A 2/2 flying. And that Airy Worshippers can just start pumping out Windrakes. Now, it's also quite a nice blocker at 2/4. Unfortunately, Nico probably wouldn't want to make that trade, although interesting here, Zach Hill. You mentioned that Nimbus Naiad maybe wants to jump in front of the Traveling Philosopher. he didn't attack with it this turn. So I think he's changed his mind, and he is going, ooh, he's going to go for the double block. So he's going to play around some type of a combat trick here as well. And it looks like Huey is content to trade off Airy Worshippers for his bestowed Traveling Philosopher, leaving him with an Everflame Eidolon, and he gets to follow up, gain 3 life off of Lagana Ban Elder. So not a bad exchange there. He's got to be happy to get that Airy Worshippers off the board, because if the game goes long, that thing just completely takes over.
Yeah, exactly. And Jensen wants to build his creatures up and kind of make them huge. And if Airy Worshippers is just cranking out a 2/2 every turn, it doesn't matter how big your creature is.
That's right. So Mnemonic Wall grabs a Voyage's End there for Nico Bohny, and then once again he passes the turn back with his Nimbus Naiad intact, because he really does, he knows that he's the control in this matchup. And here's Farragax Giant, and again Nico Bohny, he's just going to have to take the 5 here, right, Zach? I mean, it's going to be pretty tough. He could, I guess he does have a Voyage's End, so he could say, yeah, you get a 5/5 for a turn.
Yeah.
But it does kind of commit him to using it at some point.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out exactly what you want to do here. I mean, the thing is, if you're not going to be attacking with that Naiad, you're not really putting a lot of pressure on Billy. And yeah, we see him let the Giant get big because he has Sudden Storm and Voyage's End. But I really have to think you've got to start attacking and putting something together, because Billy's got a pretty impressive board right here.
That's right.
You know, if he gets another mountain, he can attack through the Mnemonic Wall with the Eidolon. You know, Bohny really needs to start putting together some kind of offense, or he's just going to get overwhelmed.
That's right. Now, he's got Sudden Storm in his hand, but my assumption with Sudden Storm when I first read it was that people are going to think it's a really great card when they're able to tap down a couple of blockers and get in for the victory, but it's less good if you're on the defensive, which right now Nico Bohny is. Do you agree with that generally, Zach, or how do you think that that card's best used?
I mean, definitely generally speaking, you want to be on the offense. You want to be able to tap down blockers. You want to be able to tap down cards in your opponent's combat that you can then leverage the fact that you can attack through them later. That said, it's not an awful defensive card. It buys you 2 turns, and the Scry can help you dig to anything that you need.
Okay, so we're probably going to see Nico play the Sudden Storm here defensively. So we're going to get a chance to look at it. There's Fearsome Temper in Huey Jensen's hand. There's also a Stone Shock Giant and a Pegasus there too.
That was me. I was just saying whenever I try to go to the...
So he's going to attack with Farragax Giant to start things. And Nico Bohny's kind of committed here to doing, basically to bouncing it.
Yeah,
and that's what he's going to do. There's no reason to do any blocking or anything along those lines, so he's just going to fire off a Voyage's End. Yeah, and that does come back to his hand here.
We have to anticipate that Voyage's End, given that he let the Giant become a 5/5. You kind of have to assume, okay, that card's getting bounced at some point.
Right, and Huey did as well. He knew that that was in Nico Bohny's hand since it was rebought with the wall. And wow, Nico says, yeah, okay. You can have it again. I mean, he's at 14 life. He does have some life to play with here, but he's let him keep it again. I guess he figures, look, if I'm going to keep this thing Sudden Stormed for a few turns in a row, it might just not be relevant no matter how big it is.
Well, and there is an adorable loop that he can kind of set up. Oh, and we see the Prognostic Sphinx, so he's not electing to do this, but he can loop his Mnemonic Walls and his Voyage's End and kind of chump block a creature of any size, essentially forever.
Does he have another Mnemonic Wall in hand?
I think he does.
Okay.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah, exactly. So that might be why he's patient to wait around for a while. He's got powerful cards like Prognostic Sphinx that can win him the game by themselves, and he's got a late game loop that's kind of hard to get through if he needs to neutralize a big creature.
That's interesting, Zach. Also, another line he could take is if he gets enough power in the air, he can cast Sudden Storm and then just buy it back and cast it again. I mean, if you cast 2 Sudden Storms in a game where you're trying to race somebody, like, you're going to be way, way, way ahead. Right now, he's got 5 power in the air, and he's not attacking, so I don't think that that's the plan quite yet here. All right, he's going to chump block with the Mnemonic Wall on the Farragax Giant, keeping him at a pretty tidy 14 life. And Huey has the Stone Shock Giant there to follow up. Now, that could change things pretty dramatically here, as if it gets monstrous, creatures on the ground aren't going to be able to block. Now, right now, Nico has 2 flyers, so it's not super relevant in that way, but still it becomes an 8-power creature, too.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and the other thing it does is just give him a lot of creatures on the board. That means that Bohny's Sudden Storms, while they may be able to lock down the 2 biggest creatures, he's still going to get hit for at least 6 from the Centaur and the Eidolon. that means he's taking 6 while only dealing 5. And at 14 life, that means he's not going to be able to use that Sudden Storm to generate tempo, because attacking with his flyers is a losing proposition. He still might do it in order to scry 3 from Prognostic Sphinx, but not the situation he wants to be in right now.
So this one's going to balance. This one's going to get really interesting. Right now, Huey's got 6 lands. The Stone Shock Giant costs 8 to monstrous, so we're not. It's not evident right now. And Nico says during your upkeep, I'm going to Sudden Storm your 2 5-power creatures here. These are the ones that he cannot block profitably currently. All right, there's a mountain off the top for Huey though, which can start to get his Everflame Eidolon into potentially battling with that Prognostic Sphinx if it comes to that.
Yeah, I think he needs one more island or one more mountain there, but another mountain would be good too because it would allow him to activate Stone Shock Giant. I'm interested in Bohny using the Sudden Storm on the upkeep. A lot of people wait until the beginning of combat in order to cast spells like that. That just gives your opponent one more draw step to draw something like a God's Willing.
Right.
So a pretty disciplined play from Bohny that I think will pay off most of the time.
That's right, and the upside of doing it on your opponent's turn, of course, before their draw step, is that if they do want to play a God's Willing, you tie up one of their mana, or maybe even more, depending on what they want to play. Solid play there. Fearsome Temper is going to make Laganaban Elder a lot scarier, and this could actually be pretty bad for Nico Bohny.
Yeah, I mean, Nico's going to take some damage this turn, and if he wants to double block in order to get rid of the Centaur, he's going to lose his Prognostic Sphinx.
And remember that you can pay 2 and a red with Fearsome Temper to make target creature can't block this creature until end of turn.
And we see Jensen targeting Prognostic Sphinx. Obviously, Bohny doesn't discard a card there. It would kind of defeat the purpose. It would tap the Sphinx.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, Bohny all the way down to 9 life with a lot of creatures on Billy's side of the board. And if you're Huey, you're not afraid of any sort of mass removal coming out of the green-blue deck. So you can kind of commit threats to the board with reckless abandon.
That's right. All right, Nico looks like he's lining up an attack. Bam! He's going to battle and get a Scry 3 here from his Prognostic Sphinx. So taking a look at his hand, he's got a Cetessan Oathsworn, a Shredding Winds, and a Mnemonic Wall.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, and I think that attack was basically so Bohny can just try and scry and do an answer. He's got a Mnemonic Wall that he can get back Sudden Storm with. I mean, he can buy himself a little bit of time, but yeah, he's...
interesting that he attacked with the Nimbus Naiad too there.
I think so, yeah. I mean, maybe it's simply an issue of just not having many profitable blocks. He knows he's going to have a wall on the board that'll allow him to block at least one threat.
All right, so he has done what you said. He brought back the Voyage's End with his Mnemonic Wall. Remember, the Stone Shock Giant and the Faragax Giant aren't untapping this turn, but they will start untapping, as Huey says, I want to go to combat.
Yeah. What bad things are going to happen to me?
Exactly.
And the answer might be not very much.
All right, so Mnemonic Wall is going to jump in front of the Everflame Eidolon there, and Huey's like, sure. And here's a Voyage's End to bounce Laganaban Elder, knock Fearsome Temper off of it, and Huey's going to respond by pumping up his Everflame Eidolon all the way to get through Mnemonic Wall, and there's even the Laganaban Elder that Huey can still cast. He's going to gain 3 life thanks to the Eidolon and ship the turn back. So Huey's kind of firing on all cylinders on his side of the battlefield here. And Nico, he's not super behind, but he's definitely scrambling here.
He is. I mean, we see the reason for the attack with the Naiad last turn, using Voyage's End to neutralize the threat, blocking with Mnemonic Wall, basically allowing himself to take no damage, even though he's at 9, which is sort of precarious here. But now he's able to marshal a pretty substantive defense, and he might be well on his way to stabilizing this board.
Yeah, now the downside, of course, for Nico here is that the 2 creatures that he just played are both ground creatures, neither fly, and Huey is 1 mana away from activating his Stone Shock Giant.
Right.
If he does that, he can have a really nice attack here, because Prognostic Sphinx is actually outclassed by 2 of Huey's creatures here.
Yeah, what Billy's got to pay attention to now are just the double blocks from Bohny's side, so combat's a little bit tricky right now, but fortunately Hold It Bay means that whatever creature he cares about the most is definitely not dying, regardless of how he decides to attack. But, and part of the temptation in a position like Huey's is just to wait around for your 8th mana.
Yeah.
But you kind of need to make something happen against an opponent who has as many combat tricks in the form of bounce spells and lockdown effects as you've already seen from Bohny.
Yeah, and Nico completely tapped out here. So So Huey has the ability here to attack with no fear. He knows exactly the options that Nico Bohny has as far as blocking goes. He's decided, look, no matter how he blocks here, I'm happy. I'm going to ship in with both of my giants.
Yeah, and again, he's got hold at bay to protect them, and he knows that Bohny's got to block with at least one creature right here.
This is a lethal attack.
Exactly.
Yeah, good point, Zach.
So, I mean, at a healthy 21 life, you're not really too scared of the attack back in any case.
That's right. All right, so Nico's lining up some blocks here. Setessan Oathsworn and his Prognostic Sphinx are going to double block, and then it looks like the Nimbus Naiad and the Ferris Band Trumper are going to double block as well on the other giant. So Huey has ordered blockers, and here we go.
Yeah, and you're going to want to keep the monstrous creature alive because, you know, again, you're just one land away from straight up winning the game.
Wow, what a huge swing there for Huey. He just got 2-for-1 and then a 1-for-1 on the other side, and now he gets to just dump his whole hand of a Crone, Skyguard, and Pegasus, fold his hand onto the table and say, you know what, you've got a 1-1. I can live with that. Your move.
Yeah, and that shredding wins in Bohny's hand, probably not going to put this game away for him. So
no, it can remove one creature, but he's got to do a whole hell of a lot more work than that right now. So Nico passes the turn back, and he doesn't look too happy about it. And Huey says, I'm going to go to combat. This is a good start for me. And
like, all right,
boom,
well.
the two-handed no math alpha is going to send everybody into the red zone. Nico can block a 5-power. If that's the case, he can take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He takes lethal unless he does something here. Huey does have to pump his Everflame Eidolon all the way to make it lethal. And shredding wins. No, he's got Mortal's Resolve to... Let's see, that's 2, 3, 4. So he's actually going to get a chance. This is actually interesting here, Zach. He's not only not going to die because of the shredding wind, so that's going to save him the 1 life that it's going to take so that he doesn't die. The Mortal's Resolve means that he's going to get to keep his Setessan Oathsworn, and he's going to eat the giant here. So, you know, there are cards.
Yeah.
It's not impossible here. And Nico's going to take the conservative route, take down the Pegasus, and... Oh, man, Huey just casually adds another Pegasus to the board. Remember, Nico's going to be at 1 at this point. So this is going to get very rough. He draws Fate Foretold, so that Setessan Oathsworn is going to be huge, but it probably won't matter as Huey has 4 lethal attackers on his side facing down 1. And we're going to get a Game 3. Speaking of Game 3s, I'm told that all of our feature matches right now are in Game 3s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every single one of them.
Well.
So quick update. Willie Adel versus Camille Cornelissen in Game 3. Zeman Götzen versus Paulo Vitor Dama de Rosa also, and Craig Wesco versus Ole Rade are all in Game 3. And we're going to get one here, too. So, all right, so it looks like we have some messages for you. Stick with us. We'll be back in just a minute.
Looking for that perfect card or just the right card sleeves and playmat for your next tournament? Gaming Etc. has what you're looking for. Use the promo code PTBNG to earn 10% off all singles and accessories at gamingetc.com. Head to your local game store on March 1st and 2nd for the Born of the Gods game day. Play in a fun standard tournament and take the next step on the hero's path by battling the Horde. Visit wizards.com/magicgameday for more information.
All right, another update for you guys. Welcome back to the feature match area here. We are watching Craig Wesco on the right versus Ole Rade. Yes, I know them just by their hands. I've been doing this for a little while. We do have one match in our feature match area which has concluded. It is Zeman Götzen. He is victorious over Paulo Vitor Dama de Rosa, 2-1. And let's just take a quick peek here. A little live look in. I like this. We can just sort of jump around and get a feel for what's going on at the other tables. You can see our mage feature match they're still shuffling up there. That's in the upper right-hand corner. Always looking to improve your viewing pleasure here at the Pro Tour, and hopefully this is another step in that direction.
Not many times you see a red-white deck on the defensive, but it looks like you had a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop from Rade's side, and that represents not only a lot of damage, but a pretty impressive board state. The Scorpion, a high pick in this format because it can block creatures that have monstrous or have a lot of enchantments on them. The Satyr or what is that?
Voyaging
Satyr. Mm-hmm. It allows him to accelerate to cast those monstrous creatures in the first place, and Courser, a 3/3 for 3. So pretty great start from Rade's side.
Ye old 1, 2, 3, not too bad at all. But I have to say, though, you know, Craig Wesco is a stone master at these type of decks, and if anybody can get themselves out of this mess, he can. He starts off with a Dragon Mantle. Looks like he wanted to hit his land drop there.
Yeah, and the thing is, even if he had 2 more red,
I love this. He's just battle.
Yeah.
It turns his Akron Hoplite into a 2/2 right now, but he can pump it, and he assumes that his opponent doesn't want to trade for an Essene Courser.
Although, I mean, I don't hate a block here. You're ahead on mana if you're Rade. You still are ahead on board. You make your opponent tap his mountain, which makes it less likely that he's going to be able to follow it up with a threat this turn.
That's a good point. Now, one thing about these Akron Hoplites, though, is on defense, they're a little miserable.
Not great on defense,
Right.
but pretty good attacking in concert with one another. That represents a lot of damage.
There's a lot of high-fiving between these two, for sure. They go into battle.
Is that what they do? That's how they battled
how I
in
picture
ancient Theros?
High fives were a thing back then.
I guess we have no evidence to suggest that they weren't.
So this is gonna, remember, this is a game 3 here as well between these two players. There's our feature match arena hall. You see over on the left-hand side, just one match finishing up. But our main feature match is underway, and there's a Deepwater Hypnotist from Nico Bohny. These players are tied 1-1. This is round 1 from the Pro Tour here. This is, you know, this is the one where you kind of get your nerves out, you get that adrenaline kind of cleared out, and hopefully you come away with a win.
And we see...
nothing from Huey on turns 1, 2, or 3?
Unbelievable. I was thinking Bohny was sitting there bluffing a dissolve, and maybe Huey didn't want to cast something into it, but I don't think that's what's happening. I think Bohny does not have dissolve, and I think Billy just doesn't have a lot of action.
Wow, so we're going to see the pace quicken here. Oh, but Nico actually has no 4-drop here either. So, and Huey has nothing on turn 4. He has no 1, 2, 3, or 4 in his aggressive red-white deck. Let's see if this spells disaster for him. Right now, though, Nico did nothing on that turn. He played a land. He played nothing on his turn or on Huey's turn. He's got to have a 5, though. Ooh, there it is. Prescient Chimera is going to add to the beatdowns. Now 5 power for Nico Bohny's side. That's a 3-turn clock, so Huey's got to come up with stuff here. And it looks like Stone Shock Giant is his first play of the game.
Unbelievable. And stranding the Bolt of Kuranos is Prescient Chimera's 4 toughness.
Right.
Meaning it's not going to get off the board. Giant a big threat, but with Jensen at 14, he's kind of on the back foot right now.
Wow, and here's a Voyage's End to bounce. And what we're going to see now is the true shining point here for the tempo cards that Nico Bohny's playing. I mean, when you have Voyage's Ends and Sudden Storms, this is where they're unbelievable. Because, you know, Huey basically gets to play 1 card per turn, and Nico can nullify it, you know, and I don't mean the card nullify, but I mean, you know, the English word nullify, and he can just keep the pressure up, and I think Huey's going to get ran over really quickly here, potentially.
Yeah, again, we see that Setessan Oathsworn also carrying a lot of weight right now. We've got both Mortal's Resolve and Fate Foretold in Bohny's hand that can really make that card huge. And that's in addition to the 3 points of evasive damage, 2 points on the ground that can immediately shrink whatever blocker Billy plays. And I mean, you just have to look at his hand. An aggressive red-white heroic deck does not want to be playing its first threat on turn 5.
No, he did draw a favored Hoplite, so he can make 2 plays this turn. Like he can play Bolt of Kronos on the Oathsworn and then play the Hoplite. But man, he's falling behind quick, kind of no matter which way you cut this. He can also just, you know, throw one of his 5-drops back down on the table as well. He's got a tough decision here.
He's got tons of options. We don't have the hand viewer up just yet, but to let you know, he's got Billy has 2 Faragax Giants in his hand.
Okay.
Favored Hoplite, Titan Strength, Bolt of Kuranos, Dauntless Onslaught, a handful of
so he actually
cards.
has Stone Shock and a Faragax
Sorry,
Giant. Yeah.
Stone Shock and a Faragax Giant.
Yep. Speaking of Faragax Giant, he's going to lead off with that. That's interesting. And Nico Bohny can't reach for his life pad quick enough. He's like, yeah, take it.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, you have a 3/3 and a favored Hoplite. And this is where Huey's going to sort of steal up and hope that he doesn't see Sudden Storm. Because if that happens, the game's essentially over, you know, from Nico's perspective.
Right, and unbeknownst to Huey, of course, Nico does have the Sudden Storm. The question is he going to prioritize that, or is he going to prioritize making his Oathsworn gigantic?
You know, it looks like he wants to try to build up here, because he actually has profitable attacks now with the Setessan Oathsworn, potentially, especially given the Mortal's Resolve that we know he has in his hand. Also, remember that Deepwater Hypnotist did get active. I'm assuming that either one of them, probably the Faragax Giant has.
I think he targeted the Giant.
So it's an 0-3 right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it looks like Nico just has his own. He basically just has superior board state without Stud and Storm here, and he still gets to just keep it in his hand for next turn. So Huey in a terrible position here. He's going to block with his 0-3 Faragax Giant on the Deepwater Hypnotist, but this has him taking 6 damage and make it 9.
Yeah.
That's lethal. That's going to do it. Nico Bohny takes down the first match versus William Huey Jensen. So Huey just does not find the curve. I mean, when we talk about aggressive decks in Limited, they're very curve dependent, and his first spell came on turn 5. So that's not going to do it. All right, we've got a few messages for you. Stick with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
You can see the full array of card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios of your favorite Magic artwork at ultrapro.com. Ignite your competitive spark by playing in a Grand Prix. These open tournaments feature the best players in your region as well as top Magic pros. Upcoming Grand Prix include Melbourne, Barcelona, Richmond, Montreal, and Buenos Aires. Visit wizards.com/Grand Prix for a complete schedule.
All right, looks like we're coming back down to the feature match area here where we have Craig Wescoe. We saw the early part of this game. Looks like he has a fearsome temper on an Akron Hoplite, but the hits keep coming from Ole Rade's side. We saw he had the old 1-2-3, and he's added a snake and a Prescient Chimera to his board. So his board is just massive here with a 3-4 flying, a 4-4 on the ground, which doesn't look like it has any counters on it. And there's also a Nessian Courser and a Voyaging Satyr. You take a look at Ole Rade, Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer Uli Rade using his Voyaging Satyr to get his second blue mana to cast that Chimera. We saw Wescoe on the back foot earlier, and it looks like it's still remained that way. He's got an enchantment on his Hoplite, so he's probably a pretty sizable creature. But again, Hoplite's a creature who wants to have a lot more creatures on the board to make it effective. And Wescoe just now hitting his 4th land drop really needs to cast something to stabilize against Rade's board.
Take a look at Craig Wescoe's lifetime stats. He's been around for a very long time and has a super solid resume as well with 3 Pro Tour top 8s, including a win. All right.
He might even actually be at 4 now. He's been kind of rattling them off. A lot of white decks blend together.
That's right. All right, so interestingly, he's going to go for Hopeful Eidolon here. And he has built up quite a little monster here. He's also got 100-handed one, which that second plains can allow him to cast, but he's going to continue to battle. Thanks to Akron Hoplite, he's going to get, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5. He can gain 5 life here.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we were talking about Hopeful Eidolon being so important to decks like this. A lot of the time, if you build up a huge creature, you're still just going to get hit back for an equivalent amount of damage, but...
All right, looks like our life totals were a little off there, as Ole Rade says, I can count to 12. How about you? And he's like, yeah, you got it. And,
really?
Scoops it up. Yeah, I don't think Craig had any reasonable options there, and so he went for the best possible one, and it wasn't good.
Well, because I was going to say, you see someone attacking with a 5 power worth of lifelink, and you're thinking, okay, well, this game, he's back in it. This game's going to go on for a while. But
yeah, but it looks like he was probably just too far behind. All right, another quick set of messages, and we'll be right back. So on camera defeat William Huey Jensen, which leaves us with but 1, and it is happening over there. We're going to bring you that momentarily here. Willie Adel, he's playing against Camille Cornelissen, and there, again, in Game 3, it turns out all of our matches in the feature match area ended up going into Game 3. So, yeah. So let's take a look. We're getting looks like we're getting shifted over there to try to take a look at what's going on while the players in the feature match area are chatting. You see Ole Rade and Craig are still just kind of having a little chat there. And we have our awesome production team moving over. There we go. A little board state there. Camille Cornelissen on the right-hand side there, and there's Willie on the left. And it looks like Camille is sitting at the full 20 life, perhaps the aggressor in this one. And what do we have? Well, there's an astronomer again, Melita's astronomer. There's also a blood toll harpy. And it looks like cavern lampheads on something there. I can't quite see what it is.
That is, I believe, the 1/3 that makes you discard cards. That's.
I think that's actually the Servant of Timuret.
Servant of Timuret.
So that has inspired untapped drain one.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whenever it untaps, your opponent loses a life and you gain a life. It also has regenerate for 2 and a black, and it's a 1/3. It's a deceptively powerful card. I think it's a little underrated right now. And it looks like it's going to get flying here thanks to Stratus Walk. It also means it can't block unless a creature has flying. And speaking of that, I think he just drew a Vaporkin off of that as well. But he's battling here. So this is 3 damage in the air.
Oh, okay, yeah, he was able to grant it flying. And I mean, Edel does have a flyer, but not a phenomenal block right here.
No, but he does feel the need to chump here because remember, if he takes it, it's going to put him effectively like near death here because again this servant is such a pain. It has regeneration and it has this thing where it's just going to keep attacking you, and even if you have profitable blocks it doesn't care because it gets to drain you when it untaps.
Exactly. I mean, Edel has a lot of threats on the board and some sizable creatures, but it's 6 life with not a whole lot going on in the air. You have to think that Camille is heavily favored right now.
Yeah, I mean, Willie Edel has 9 power on the board right now. Or he has 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Yeah, he has 9. But it doesn't look like he has much to do with it at the moment. So, oh, that's so brutal. He's got an Asphyxiate in hand, but that is never going to happen.
Yeah, Asphyxiate, not the best when you're behind. Mogus Marauder, again, great aggressive card, has haste, can get you through, but it's not going to deal 21 points of damage. Farrakha's Mender... does it get back what? Enchantments?
You get creature and
enchantments. Okay, so he can get back the 2/1, which gives him another flying blocker, but can't cast it until next turn. So yeah, I mean,
he's going to be at 5, right? And then he's going to take 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't see a lot of board states like this where, you know, Edel has a ton of options, has a very developed board, has enough mana to cast things.
Yeah, this is going to be Fade into Antiquity, I think.
I think he's going to have to asphyxiate the Blood Toll Harpy.
Well, I think he can just do both, right?
Oh, okay,
yeah,
sure.
So
because he has the Voyaging Satyr,
right.
Exactly.
So no, if he uses Fade into Antiquity on the Cavern Lampad, then he reduces the power and can buy himself some time. He can also do it on the Stratus Walk and bring that thing back down to the ground where he can make it only 1 per turn and tie up 3 of Camille's lands. But he's got options here. I mean, there's a lot going on for sure. It's not like this game's over.
No, I mean, and he's staying alive. He's being threatened on so many different axes that it's hard to do a lot about it. Yeah, we see him fade the Eidolon, but he's still taking effectively 2 a turn from the Servant of Timuret.
That's right. So yeah, Cavern Lampad gets exiled, and here's his 68 on Blood Toll Harpy. Does Camille have anything to say about that? Well, he's got a few cards in hand, but none of them actually matter here, so that thing's just going to bite it. But now Willie still has to deal with essentially a 3-turn clock here, thanks to the Servant in the air. It attacks for 1 damage, it untaps, and he gets a drain, and that could be it. So Willie's got to get things moving forward in the right direction. He's going to attack for 4.
And actually, I think that horse was supposed to tap due to the Asphyxiate.
You're totally right, Zach. The Fleshmad Steed should not be able to attack here. Whenever a creature dies, it gets tapped, and that's not an option. So hopefully they notice it in short order here and maybe can try to fix this.
Well, I mean, irrespective of what's going on, Triton Tactics plus the Wave Crash Titan means that
it might not matter anyway.
Might not matter anyway.
Yeah.
I think we see the judge coming in and saying exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah, that's an easy one to forget. You know, that one happens sometimes, but it should have been tapped. All right, so the judge is going to take care of this, and he's explaining what the situation is to Willie and Camille right now. And they're, oh, right, from a 68. So now they're going to have to see, you know, this is where I always have to ask a judge, you know, well, what's the plan here? Because there's times when they can back up a little bit and not have it affect much, but there's times when they can't too, and they know the rules for that.
It's an easy ability to forget. It's one of those abilities that's kind of on there for flavor. You know, it's like the flesh-eating horses. So when something dies, they have to go chill and, you know, eat some lunch. But, you know, the fact is, even though it's an ability that's there for flavor, it's very gameplay relevant sometimes.
It is indeed.
That's exactly one of those circumstances where it comes up.
Right.
I think I cannot attack. Yeah, but the problem is that he's at the gym.
You see the judges conferring here.
I think it's wrong. Yeah, I'm not supposed to attack. You're not supposed to attack. So you don't attack. I did all my play to attack. Okay. But like it was my mistake.
Okay, yeah. It should be tapped. Okay. And then you did not tap.
So he's at 22.
So I'm at 4 life higher than you are 4 so I'm 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so Willie said, look, I made my entire line of play based on the fact that I could attack, but it was my fault, so I shouldn't be able to attack. It's tapped, and the judge, of course, agrees. And so Camille Cornelissen will actually be at 21 still. That attack didn't happen. The flesh-fat steed, of course, stays tapped.
Right.
Because that's the whole ability here.
It taps.
Yeah. Right. So Camille Cornelissen lining up a fight. Now, did he miss his trigger? Okay, Willie is at 5, and he should be down to 4 now.
And again, we see Wave Crash Titan, Triton Tactics, Vaporkin, and Sip of Hemlock in Cornelissen's hand.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that 4 damage is what determines the outcome of the game, not super high, but you still want to keep track of things like missed triggers. You want to keep an accurate board state.
Right.
You know, and Edel could top deck something that allows him to recover, in which case that 4 points matters a lot. So
that's
you know, you obviously want to get things correct.
All right, but it looks like Camille Cornelissen got things correct here in Game 3 and has taken the match. So he's going to beat Willie Edel 2-1, and that's going to conclude our feature matches here for round 1. Great stuff so far, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, some really incredible matches. I enjoyed being able to check out all 4 tables. It's something we're not used to.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It's really lucky. Welcome back to the booth, guys. Marshall Cycliffe here with Zach Hill. It's always lucky for us, and for you too, when we get a bunch of Game 3s over in the feature match area, you know, because we get to pop in and we get just a lot more Magic action on the tables.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I mean, we saw a variety of different decks there. We saw a green-blue tempo deck, kind of a unusual deck to draft. We saw the standard red-white aggressive decks. We saw a lot of variants of black. I mean, a lot of the time when I build black-blue, it's a control deck. But we saw Vaporkin coming out of Camille's side, not really a control card. I was able to put together what looked like a pretty decent tempo deck there.
Yeah, I'm curious. I wouldn't mind taking a quick fan through his list, because that was an interesting one for sure. But he found the victory. Willie Edel's deck looked pretty strong too. You know, he had a lot of nice threats and some reasonable answers that we saw. They just didn't seem to match up well. What I really want to know is, how did he get so far behind?
Yeah, I don't really understand. I think he may have missed a land drop or something.
Maybe that could be because Cavern Lampad against the black deck,
right?
Not amazing. You know,
no.
I mean, it's fine, but like you actually have ways to interact with that. It's not like he just took 3 hits from bestowed creatures.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, yeah, the Intimidate, you can just block it with black creatures. But the deck I'm interested in asking you about is actually Huey's deck. Mm-hmm. We saw it kind of start out really slow in Game 3, but you were saying that he kind of just left deck building before you could even get over there and check it out.
Well, I couldn't find him. I'm assuming he built his deck quickly.
Sure.
You know, I can usually spot him in a crowd. All right, looks like we're ready to go over at the news desk. We're going to bring you some content there, and then when we come back to the booth in a little bit, we're going to have round 2 here from Pro Tour Born of the Gods. Don't go anywhere.
All right, thanks very much to Marshall and Zach. That is round 1 in the books, as we like to say at BDM. I know that you've been, as you just gently put the iPad back down, I know you've been looking at social media and Twitter. Any players you want to highlight that have sort of tweeted their round 1s?
Well, I mean, Luis Scott Vargas, did not get his tournament off to a rousing start when his opponent led off with Springleaf Drum into God-Favored General.
Yeah, that's kind of nasty.
He just wasn't, he's like, oh, I guess, one of the problems with God-Favored General is it's a little tricky to attack it into, well, anything.
Yeah.
But with the Springleaf Drum, he's able to just get that going and just start, spreading out an army of tokens.
Melissa DeTora has played flawlessly thus far.
Oh, yes,
yes, she got the bye.
That guy just can't get a break in
Mr.
Pro
Chair.
Tour. Yeah, Mr. Chair, he's just not very good.
0 for lots lifetime,
yeah.
it turns out. So he's there. Michael Hetrick posting, he's a winner. Bing Luke is a winner.
Bing Luke, by the way, I thought this was kind of interesting. So again, we've talked about this over the years, people who are Magic Online players who, don't play a lot of paper Magic. So Bing is that guy, right? He doesn't do a lot. He got permission from the head judge to put an H on his cards in Sharpie that have heroic, just so he could remind himself of his heroic triggers. He's like, I mean, his opponent gets that advantage too, but he's just like, I need something here to just remember everything that's going on. And
I mean, I'm all for the pen and paper system. You see some of the best players in the world scribbling every bit of information down, but that takes it to a whole new level of heroic. I like that. Let's bring you some results. We're focusing on 2 feature pods in action this morning. One of them, of course, features William Jensen. Let's take a look, first glance at our scoreboard through round 1. So there you see draft 1. It happened to be pod 28. So you see Nico Bohny, their winner from Switzerland on the Austria-Germany Alliance team. And 1-0-0, that refers to wins, losses, and draws. So you've got 4 winners there: Bohny, Huey, Ruel, and Wu, and 4 losers in round 1: Garnier, Jensen, Krautmann, and Ravenswey.
So, yeah, Don van Ravenswey, that name may seem familiar to you. Mm-hmm. We did 2, the last Pro Tour he played in, we had him at the feature draft table both times. He exoed day 1, ended up at the top draft table on day 2, and he put something on Facebook. He's like, well, I've played in 2 Pro Tours. I've sat down to exactly 3 Pro Tour drafts, and I've been at the featured table all 3 times. I'm running good.
So he's never played a regular Pro Tour draft?
No, he's never sat out in steerage.
Well, he's going to need to hurry up because he lost his first round. Maybe that streak ends tomorrow morning because we have 3 more rounds of draft there. So once again, let's look at that board and you see Bohny winning, and then let's move on to pod 22, our other featured table, and let's tell you a bit about the players who are on that list. So Rasmus Björklund, he's from Sweden, a guy who has plenty of Grand Prix experience, very much. Went 8-8 at Pro Tour Theros on his debut. Ben Lundqvist is part of Team Channel Fireball, 20 PTs for him. Benny Beatdown,
I was just going to say, Benny Beatdowns, yeah. I mean, he was on a national team with Luis Scott Vargas, way back in the latter half of the 2000s.
I think that's 2006, best guess for that one, maybe 2007. Then we've got Jason Southworth is in that group. He lost his opening match, the North Miami PT Cube winner on his debut here at the Pro Tour. Thomas van Heerden is a South African representative here, and he too won the Cape Town PTQ, another Pro Tour qualifier winner. Ralph Levy, the Hall of Famer on Team Revolution. And then you see Wei Quan Wong. He's part of the MTG Mint team. And I think, let's hold our hands up and say there is a language barrier there, which means we're not going to get to talk to that team necessarily as much as we can readily talk to, notionally English speakers like Tom Martell, or actually English speakers like Richard Parker or myself. But nonetheless, they're very much a team we want to keep an eye on. From Elaborate Ruse, we've seen Elias Watsfeldt win from Sweden. And that, again, one of the big teams to keep an eye on.
And of course, the lone wolf, Shota Yasaoka, sitting there and with a little bit of a hill to climb at 0-1.
Yeah, he lost to Rasmus Björklund, which is a big scout for Björklund. And
I mean, he'll be talking about that all year at whatever his local shop is, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, Yasaoka, I beat him.
Yeah,
yeah, not close.
Yeah. What is interesting, we talked about Ari Lax as someone. We wanted to see whether he could get out of draft at, say, 2-1 or better. Alex Magilton, with his affinity, we think is going to be very well positioned in terms of experience and deck. We want to see if he gets out of draft 2-1 or better.
And we want to see if he's playing affinity. We actually, you and I have certainly not looked at anybody's deck list yet. We don't. The metagame breakdown's being done. We don't know. We're just going on. We're profiling here.
Yeah, not criminally. But
yeah, well.
Well, so moving on.
Have you ever played against that deck? You feel like something got stolen from you.
I was shattered, yes, and he wasn't, unfortunately. There we are. That's the story of round 1. Now, as we head into round 2, what BDM and I are going to talk about is a little bit about BNG Theros Draft, because in case you didn't know this, there was a little program called Magic Online, and it turns out that BNG Theros is available it's available right now. Yeah, one day. So, what's going on in the world of BNG Theros? We have some early data for you.
So these are the results of the cards that are highly picked by in decks that have one of this archetype. So, for example, if we talk about a red-white deck, we're going to look at the red and white commons and uncommons that are first through fifth picks of players in decks that have won their draft.
All right, so we're going to start with red-white.
Right.
No particular favoritism here. That's just how it came out of the hopper.
There's actual favoritism here. This was my favorite archetype in Triple Theros, and it's only gotten stronger for me in this new format with Born of the Gods. It's very aggressive. You have the heroic triggers all over the place. A Crow and Skyguard. I might like that card better than Wingsteed Rider.
Yeah, some people called it Wingsteed Rider Light.
I think it is. I think it just the fact. Wingsteed Rider, sometimes you play it, and then you've got to, it's like turn 3, you got to untap, all this stuff's got to happen. Skyguard, you just get going so much quicker. I've been really impressed with that card. And I would love to see something where they were in the same pack to see which one I would pick.
I'm very interested in those removal spells you see down the bottom.
Oh, yeah, well, the red removal is insane.
Okay, but here's the thing. This is obviously, because of Theros being a set featuring a devotion, there are a lot of cards that are skewed towards double mana cost. Now, Fall of the Hammer, that's very straightforward. But both Searing Blood, straight up red-red, and Bolt of Keranos, 1 red-red,
sure,
are not splashable cards, essentially.
No.
These are commitments. How happy are you opening a pack where there's not a super exciting rare, there's a couple of okay uncommons, and there's a Bolt of Keranos? Are you just straight in with the double red commitment?
Well, I mean, we watched Hall of Famer William Jensen drafting a red-white deck. Mm-hmm. Maybe not, maybe the cards didn't necessarily play out exactly as he would have liked, but when he opened up his first pack, Bolt of Keranos, that was the card he took. And, he had no trouble taking white cards, even white cards that are 1-drops. I mean, that's going to be a card, even if you can't play it on turn 3, it's going to be fine on turn 4, it's going to be fine on turn 5. I mean, the creature's getting, the 3 damage is going to deal with most of the things you want, most of the pests that need removing.
That is certainly true. All right, so let's take a look at the top Born of the Gods commons in this red-white archetype.
I mean, no shock that a Crow and Skyguard is at the top of the list. Every archetype we look at that is going to have white in it is going to have a Crow and Skyguard. It's just one of the premium commons in the set. Fall of the Hammer has just been amazing removal. I've been calling it Sucker Punch because it's like a pit fight where one of the players doesn't know they're fighting.
That's right. When you see it first, you assume, oh, it must be one of those kind of fight cards. And then, no, it isn't a fight at all.
Bolt of Keranos, we just talked about. Elite Skirmisher. So my first opportunity to play with Born of the Gods was my, Friday Night Magic, where we did Born of the Gods Theros draft. So it was 2 packs of Born of the Gods. Right. And I got steamrolled by a guy who had 4 Elite Skirmishers and 4 Fall of the Hammers. So it was just utter devastation. It was like, tap that, kill that, attack for 3. Play this, tap that, kill that, attack for 6.
I want to ask you about Elite Skirmisher because it's a card that at 3, and this isn't meant ironically, kind of tops out the curve of the red-white deck. Is there a number of those that is too many?
I mean, yes. I mean, I've talked to people who don't like the card at all.
Okay.
I've seen it go. Depending on the composition of your draft, I've seen it go really late. I mean, there's probably a number that. I mean, you want Skyguard over it. You want your 1-drop heroic. You want your favorite hoplite. But man, I really I love having 2 of those. And with 1 Born of the Gods pack, you're not going to have too many of anything in Born of the Gods.
Sure.
You don't see it. Kragma Butcher is another card that seems like it would lend itself to the archetype of Minotaurs and force you to be Rakdos red-black.
So that's your 2/3, 4/3.
Right, it's a 2/3, and then when it untaps, it has Inspired, it becomes a 4/3. But, I mean, honestly, that card's turned out to be a premium common. It's great. Like, 2/3 for 3, it does work. It comes down, it holds the ground, and then when it starts attacking, if you have any kind of red-white, you have so many tricks. It's really difficult for your opponent to block it, and then once it untaps that first time and is attacking for 4, it's just a great card. It's really come way up in people's orders very quickly.
So you're going to have plenty of opportunity to draft those because they're common. Let's look at the top Born of the Gods uncommons. So we have the Crow and Phalanx, Searing Blood, the double red we talked about, Everflame Eidolon. Wow, a top card that is a pump spell. You know,
sure. Well, it's like it's fire breathing.
That's right.
Right. It's a fire breathing card, but it's +1/+1. It's a bestow card. It triggers your heroic. If they kill your creature, you still have a creature left in its place. It lets you trade up the curve against big fat decks. It lets you, you come out early, you beat your opponent down, and then you play that on a creature, and then they're like, oh, I guess I've got to block with my 5 toughness guy here, and you get to pump and kill it. Searing Blood is just amazing. Crown Phalanx, I haven't actually had a chance to play with that card.
I'm surprised to see that there, because at 4 mana, given what we already know about red-white, it feels quite top-heavy. Given what we know about the previous format with blue-white heroic being such a big deal and lots of flyers going over the top of something like a Crown Phalanx.
Imagine for a moment, though, you've come out early, you've played like, a traveling philosopher, you've played a cavalry Pegasus, maybe you have, I don't know, some other human of some type, it doesn't really matter, maybe a favorite hoplite.
Okay.
And then you attack with everybody. This guy has vigilance. They all fly because you're cavalry Pegasus. And then you activate and, suddenly you're getting for 3 mana, you get 4 extra damage.
Okay. Maybe that explains it. Now, once we get these two combined, the 2 sets, because obviously, let's see what the data comes for that. So we've done the commons, we've done the uncommons. Let's look at Theros and Born of the Gods combined in terms of top commons and top uncommons.
So yeah, Skyguard, Wingsteed Rider, Lightning Strike, Fall of the Hammer, Bolt of Karanos. Skyguard actually, I believe these are in order.
Yeah, that makes you realize just how powerful that is, because there's some really good spells under there.
Yeah. Favorite hoplite, just unbelievable. Crown Phalanx, Dauntless Onslaught, a Crowan hoplite, and Ordeal of Porphyros for the uncommons.
Do you think the Ordeals have gone down in value?
No.
No?
No, I don't. But there's so many good, cheap creatures in Born of the Gods that I think, there's just, the Sun Chaser that you can just kind of go,
Sun Chaser,
get up and over with and put that on. There's the whole cycle of, really cheap, Nyxborn bestow creatures.
Sure.
That can come down. Oh, sure, I'll play it on turn 1.
All right, yeah.
And, I'll...
Nyxborn Shieldmate, for example.
Yeah, Nyxborn Shieldmate's perfect. Bestowly Strength, I like to call it.
Very good.
Is a perfect card to hold an Ordeal. So
Bestowly Strength. Wow. Okay, let's move on to our second archetype.
Oh, okay, let's.
I thought that was lovely. It was green-blue is up next. And so the best cards of this deck come in Theros, but you still get some solid additions from Born of the Gods.
I'm assuming by best cards they mean Nessie and Asp.
Well, for example. You get your solid bestow creatures and you get tempo plays. By tempo plays, we mean just trying to keep the game in your favor. Lots of little bounce spells in blue, Voyager's End, you saw in the first round, for example.
The Nyxborns in this, and both the green and the blue Nyxborns are just terrific here. Nyxborn Triton is so good as a 2/3 and so good as a bestow creature later. And the Wolf is just really hits hard.
Well, +3/+1.
+3, especially in green-blue where you're going to have some of those blue flyers that are coming over. Suddenly being able to go +3 onto, I don't know, say a Vaporkin.
And also
that's a big deal.
Yeah,
that hits hard and fast.
Some sort of top toughness heavy creatures that then get balanced with the +3/+1.
Oh,
the
yes,
+1 becomes irrelevant. If you have like a Wave Crash Triton at 1/4, that's now a 4/5 you've just built.
Rich, do you feel like this irrational urge to level out the power and toughness of your creatures when you're playing a game of Magic?
Just that little bit OCD. Yeah, when we did the Inside R&D videos, they were going, and now we've made some of these bestow things that aren't square. They're like +2/+3, +3/+1. I'm like, no.
But at the same time, part of you was thinking, yeah, but I could put
Chosen by Heliod on the +3/+1. I draw a card, and now it's 3/3, and everything's fine. Yeah, lovely. We all have OCD, I guess, to some extent. I certainly do. Yes, you're right. How did you know that? We didn't even rehearse that.
I could feel it.
Yeah, top Born of the Gods common. There are some of the offending Nyxborn.
Retraction Helix is a card that I think when people first looked at it, maybe at first glance it was like, oh, so I got to target my guy, and then he's got to tap my guy to bounce it. That seems like, but you know what? It's a cheap bounce spell. It gives you heroic triggers, which is really important. You know, a lot of times you have things like a staunch-hearted warrior or something like that that's sitting there. Well, suddenly in combat, you know, with just a blue, you're like Retraction Helix. My staunch-hearted warrior is now a 4/4. Yeah. I tap it. I bounce your other guy that you were trying to do something nasty with. You know.
Yeah, and also with a card like Setessan Oathsworn, that is also a card that gets 2 counters off the heroic. So again, all those heroic triggers have you the chance to get that value. Setessan Oathsworn only a common as well, so...
We talked about the Nyxborns. Ferris Brand Trumper is a card that, by the way, you know, is just... You know, another card that's fine to Retraction Helix. Like, oh, I can't quite get through that yet. I'll sit back here and block. But, you know, oh, I'm going to tap it, bounce your guy, untap, get my Inspired trigger. So that's the other thing that something like Retraction Helix does. Gives you a non-combat way to tap your creatures with Inspire.
Let's take a look at the top uncommons then. And we have Kiora's Follower, Raised by Wolves, Siren of the Fan Coast, Archetype of Imagination, that's the 3rd archetype we've seen, and Flitter Step Eidolon. What catches your eye there, BDM?
I love Kiora's Followers.
Of course you do.
Of course I do. I mean, this card kind of does everything for you. You know, it gives you mana acceleration, but it also lets you untap your inspired creatures at a key moment. You know, if you have Oracle's Insight on a creature, well, suddenly you're like, okay, Oracle's Insight, scry draw, tap to scry draw, Kiora's Follower, untap it, do it again. Like it gives you just, you know, early game, late game, this card just does so much for you. And, you know, oh, by the way, it's just a 2/2 beater that can, you know, hold a bestow creature.
Raised by Wolves, at first glance, looks pretty clunky in that it's 3 and 2 green. It's got a...
It's a little clunky to me at second glance, I'll be honest.
Okay, so you're not a massive fan?
It's good. I know it's good. I mean, I've been really spoiled by the bestow auras.
Sure.
So, but this does leave something behind in the form of 2 wolves, so it's obviously, you know, better than...
Yeah, and we've also got used, you say being spoiled, we've got used to auras that draw a card, like Chosen by Heliod and Scourge Mark and so on, where you go, okay, this is going to really reduce my drawback, and this is an old school, I'm going to pay 5 and hope you don't have a removal spell.
Yes.
The classic. Let's take a look at them combined then. Born of the Gods and Theros combined, the top commons and uncommons.
Not a surprise.
No.
This remains just one of the premium commons. When you're building your deck, you know, at the draft table, you're like, how am I going to deal with my opponent's Nessian Asp? It's like the big question that you have whenever you're in a Theros block draft. Leaf Crown Dryad, Voyage's End, Nimbus Naiad, Voyaging Satyr. Just all great cards.
It is very Theros heavy, that list.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Follower, Horizon Chimera. This is a card, you know, we talked about the green-blue archetype really residing in Theros and getting a little bit of a boost from Born of the Gods.
Does that mean you have to be a little bit nervous or a little bit brave going into it in Born of the Gods?
But it's one of those things where it's you can draft it, and if you've done enough drafts and you know how things go, since it's a little opaque in Born of the Gods, and you know it's there, like you can sort of just say, I'm going to cut these 2 colors off really hard.
Right.
And I know it's going to be there. Right?
You're
I know those cards.
Pack 3.
I know those cards are going to be there. I know that I'm going to get stuff in pack 2. I know I'm going to see stuff in pack 3 if I just shut it down. So it's the fact that it's not quite there in Born of the Gods actually to some extent works in your favor if you're planning for that.
So potentially you're looking at maybe only 6 cards out of Born of the Gods, and then go 6, 8, 8, something like that.
Yeah, something like that, sure.
As a rough guide. I know that's 22, not 23, but you know, as a rough guide. All right, that's green-blue. Looks like we've got time for one more as we whittle through. Pairings are just about to happen, so round 2 is not far away. And we go into white-blue.
Yes.
And, well, it's pretty fair to say this was premium archetype in Triple Theros.
Yeah, I'm again, you know, red, white, and red, blue were probably the 2 decks I've drafted the most in Triple Theros.
Red, blue?
I'm sorry, blue, white. I'm sorry, blue, white, and red, white.
Yeah.
I always want the red, blue, but I never quite pull the trigger on it. Very aggressive, heroic themed. Crow and Skyguard, just one of the premium cards that gets added here. Nyxborn Shieldmate, just terrific. And Cards of the Tides is just fills a role here. That 4-drop flyer with the heroic triggers. And I mean, as far as Enlightenment is singled out here as a card that, you get to bounce it, you get to, trigger, move it around, do all this kind of fun stuff. And people have been raving. Everyone who's been drafting has been just raving about the Ornitharch.
Well, the thing is, it's of all the tribute cards, it's the one that says 5/5 of flying. End of discussion.
No matter what.
You can spread it out or you can stack it up, but it is 5/5 of flying.
You can give me an angel or a ranger. Whichever you want to give me, I'm getting 5.
Yeah. It's an exceptional card. Let's look at the commons then in Born of the Gods. The top 5, they are a Crowan Skyguard, Pair of Nyx Born Again, Retraction Helix, and Chorus of the Tides.
Right, so we've seen all of these cards as top commons in other permutations of these colors. The Nyxborn Triton, again, just holding that role, like, okay, I'm going to play a 2/3 on turn 3. I'm going to stop your weird little aggressive beatdown deck. Or I'm going to draw it late game, and I'm going to have this kind of big boost to one of my guys that is going to make me able to crash in and attack into one guy into 2 of your creatures, something along those lines. Retraction Helix, again, a great tempo spell.
All right, what about the uncommons from Born of the Gods? As far as Enlightenment, we've already seen. Ornitharch, we've mentioned. Oh, look, there's the archetype once again. Ghostblade Eidolon. Now, talk to me about this card, Airy Worshippers. This is a card I'm very interested in this set.
I'm very interested in it too. So I've probably done a dozen drafts so far. I've not had a chance to untap an Airy Worshippers yet.
Have you had Airy Worshippers?
I think I've had one in a deck. I don't know if I've gotten to do it yet.
And is that just a function of it being sufficiently good that other people at the table are taking it before
it's
you?
not. My draft strategies tend to involve like
1s and 2 drops.
What's going to come around the table, or just being single-mindedly aggressive with heroic decks. But as far as Enlightenment's another card also that I just haven't. I just like Nate Price, who's doing text coverage here. I know loves this card, loves the Flood Tide Serpent.
That can't attack unless you
right. And so he loves, he's like, oh, I'm going to Fate Foretold on that. I'm going to attack. I'm going to pick up my Fate Foretold, put it over here, draw a card. It's,
Engine.
Yes. There's a lot of really fun stuff you can do in the blue-white archetype. There's all these card drawing, tricky enchantment things. There's, again, lots of ways to just get redundant heroic triggers off the same card.
Yeah, and
which is why Farah's Enlightenment is so good.
Also, one of the key things about blue-white is that some archetypes are designed to be what I would call vertical. They're like, here's a guy, it's either huge on its own or it's huge because I'm bestowing and it gets bigger that way. Then there are other archetypes that are essentially, certainly in the history of the game, that are designed to go wide. Blue-white really can do both. Because with a card alone, like Airy Worshippers, you can start spreading outwards, and Ornitharch spreads outwards.
And we just talked about Luis Scott Vargas, losing to the God-Favored General Springleaf Drum combination, where it's just like, okay, I'm sure that was a blue-white deck. I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to, amass an army, and eventually I'm going to assemble a legion and kill you.
Yeah, I mean, you expect to turn 1 Springleaf Drum quite a lot today, but not necessarily in round 1 in draft. But it is terrific. All right, that's the uncommons. Let's take a look then at the pairs. So here we are. We have...
Interesting that in some of the other white decks, we've seen a Crowan Skyguard over Wingsteed Rider as top common. But here in blue-white heroic, Wingsteed Rider seems to take an edge. I think maybe a Crowan Skyguard gets a little bit more of a boost in the red-white aggro decks that just want to lower their curve as much as possible.
Do you not think also, though, it says right at the bottom there, our disclaimer, if you will, most frequently 1st to 5th pick commons and uncommons among draft winners on Magic Online. And I emphasize winners. Do you not think there are a lot of people with Wingsteed Rider muscle memory going around looking at all the packs in their Magic Online accounts thanks to first pick Wingsteed Riders?
Sure.
And that maybe the Crowan Skyguard rises in popularity as the format develops a little more?
Let me tell you, the card on the right is probably... I have definitely developed... If I am blue-white, I have 1 win guaranteed for each copy of Battlewise Hoplite in my deck. Wow. If I can get 3 Battlewise Hoplites, which I've done a couple times, I'm going to absolutely 3-0 that draft.
It is pretty savage. I mean, if you start off with the idea that it's, let's say, a 3/3 for 2... that has already done something mean or useful, and that's the sort of the low end of it. And of course, its bottom line is it's a traveling philosopher that was a little bit harder to cast.
Yes. Yeah, you know, a little bit more of an action man than the philosopher, but. Yeah, it's one of my favorite cards. Heliod's Emissary, Ordeal of Thassa, Ornitharch. You see Afara's Enlightenment, but the Battle-Wise Hoplite, the top uncommon in the blue-white archetype. It's a phenomenal card.
They are pairing right now. I'm going to try and squeeze one more archetype in for you. Let's go with. Here we go. See, this is why we do this for you.
I was so upset. Marshall and I, we get in on Wednesday, and the first thing we both said to each other was, I'm going to try drafting the blue-red deck in the coverage drafts. And we're like, no! This is really, this was not a popular archetype in Theros, but Born of the Gods may change that. And Stormcaller of Keranos is one of those cards that just is begging to be broken. I know Mike Flores, who I do a podcast with, is dying. He's like, I could see playing this card in Constructed.
Is that because of the colon where the tap symbol ought to be?
Yes.
We should explain what that really means.
So Stormcaller of Keranos is something that comes down. It's a 2/2 haste creature, but it has 1U : scry 1. So that means late in the game, you have 8 mana in play, and 4 of it's blue. You can just scry, push, scry, push, scry, push, scry. Ooh, I want that one. I'm going to leave that there.
Essentially, you never draw a land ever again.
Correct.
Late game.
Correct. Yeah.
That's pretty brutal.
And now imagine for a second that you had, I don't know, a Flamespeaker Adept in play.
Ooh.
You know, that becomes, with a Stormcaller of Keranos on the board, that just becomes an abyss. Because you're like, all right, I attack with my Flamespeaker Adept. How many creatures do you want to put in front of that? Probably just one. And it is going to get first struck to death.
Here comes Servant of Timuret to the rescue. Finally, I found a slot for him. Yeah, my 1/3 regenerator.
That guy's fine.
Yeah, he is fine.
You get all the removal, you get the Lightning Strikes and the Voyage's Ends and all the tempo cards. I mean, this is just a really fun archetype to draft.
Okay, so why don't we look at how this archetype comes together by looking at the top Born of the Gods commons. We've already talked about Bolt of Keranos. We've already talked about Chorus of the Tides. We've already seen Fall of the Hammer and Retraction Helix. So let's focus on the card that's hiding up at the back there. Sudden Storm. How much do you like this?
I hate it when my opponent plays it.
Fine, yeah.
And I have the inverse amount of love for it when it's in my hand. Right? It's just that idea. Your opponent just sets up, they're doing something, they tap out to bestow something, and they're like, and then I'm going to attack for the tap that, lock them down.
Yeah.
Or give me a whole turn. I mean, this is choking tethers. This is a staple card for many limited formats in different iterations. So, I mean, this card's going to be really good. Blinding Beam is another example.
Oh, fantastic card, that. And also, there are sort of various little, almost counterintuitive tricks you can do with it, like you can target their guy that's going to kill you, your own Phalanx leader that you don't need as a blocker,
absolutely.
that then puts +1/+1 counter on all your team. Right. It's the fact that it isn't 2 target creatures they control or you control. It's like, spread them out, and there's a lot of room for maneuver with the card.
Sure,
oh,
absolutely.
and by the way, you can scry.
Yeah.
Just as you know.
Yeah.
And why not? Let's look at the uncommons then.
Yeah. Siren of the Fanged Coast.
Yeah, now you said that in a way that was sort of a bit like a sort of slightly disapproving auntie. You
know what? I've had a mixed reaction to the tribute mechanic so far, but this is one like, you're almost always going to get a 4/4 flyer for 5 out of this because your opponent does not want to give up one of their creatures, a target creature. Searing Blood Oracle's Insight is probably my favorite card in this format.
Wow.
Which flies in the face of what I've been doing in this format, which is attacking with 1s and 2s. This is much more like, I need an 06 wall really badly for my deck so I can put Oracle's Insight on it and draw a lot of cards.
Yeah, Mnemonic Wall's really good. Searing Blood, we see there, a Crone Conscriptor. That's your, I'd like to steal something, please. And Fleur de Step Eidolon, some of the Eidolons are interesting in that a lot of the time you're waiting to bestow. So I think, say, Eidolon of Countless Battles, it's 3 to cast, 4 to bestow. Fleur de Step Eidolon is as wide as it gets. It's like, it's either a 1/1 for 2, or it's like 5 and a blue to bestow. And that's because +1/+1 and can't be blocked.
Can't be blocked can't be blocked is a big game, as the kids like to say.
Big game indeed. All right, so those are the uncommons. Let's pull them together and see what we get once Theros is into the mix.
Yeah, Griptide, Lightning Strike, Nimbus Naiad, and then 2 new removal spells, Bolt of Keranos and Fall of the Hammer for commons. You see, you just control the board with a deck like this. You're killing things and bouncing things. And then the uncommons, Magma Jet, the Siren of the Fen Coast, Thassa's Emissary, Oracle's Insight, and Searing Blood. So it's stealing, bouncing, removing, maybe some card drawing with my bestow creature there. That's what red-blue likes to do.
You're kind of quite excited about red-blue.
I am. I really want to just make sure no one else drafts it when we draft.
You can arrange that, right? Can't you?
Yeah, I can.
Instruct people.
I've been known to bully a draft. I mean, I'll do it. I'll be like, but.
You say that as if that's news.
Yeah, no, I know. I have a lot of slivers in my collections on Magic Online.
Let me tell you about some feature matches that are coming up this round. So at 3 points, so that means 1-0. They won their first round. We have Ari Lax.
Oh, exciting.
So he won his first round. He is against a Pro Tour champion. He is against a modern Pro Tour champion. That narrows it down significantly.
Sure. Stanislav Sevka?
Wrong. Good try, though.
Oh. Samuela Estradi?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Got it in 2.
Yeah,
Good effort.
In the 2 that you can get.
In the 2. So Ari Lax is against Samuela Estrati. Now, also, at 1 win and no losses, we have one of the hottest players in Magic right now, Owen Turtenwald, who you've had the privilege to watch at a lot of these North American GPs in the run-up to now. Just how good is he right now?
Every bit as good as people are saying, and probably more so. Players on his team are talking about him as just being the best player in the game right now.
Yeah.
So, I think, and, we're going to see him... on the Pro Tour stage now. But I mean, there is no player that's run as good as he has over the past couple months. And by run, I don't mean that in a lucky way. I mean, just understands what he's doing, understands, the draft formats, whatever constructed format is in hand, what he needs to do, and is just playing optimal Magic on every turn of the game. Just focused.
Yep. And he's winning.
Yeah.
Not quite everything that he enters, but he's winning a lot of things that he enters. Back-to-back Grand Prix, won the Super Sunday Series. If you go to Grand Prix, by the way, you should definitely get yourself in a Super Sunday Series if you happen to not make day 2, because that tournament was awesome. A couple of weekends back that Owen won that. He is up against another Pro Tour champion from 2007, who is a Grand Prix winner in the last couple of months with 2 teammates from Geneva. I give you Mr. Mike Rohn, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mike Rohn. So, he won the Japanese Team Grand Prix with Richard Hone and Alexander Hayne.
Yep. And do you know why on Sundays we are now going to show every turn of every game? Because at Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur in 2008, Mike Rohn was in a top 8 so stacked that he was against Joel Calafell on the back table, and we didn't see a single turn of his quarterfinal. And that's why we're shifting, things like that. So, Rohn against Turtenwald. Then we have another of the Triple H, but not the... it is the Canadian, but it's the other Canadian. It's Rich Hone coming into the feature match area against Michael Hetrick.
Oh, wow.
What do you know about Mike?
Michael Hetrick is a Magic Online, superstar. Shepard Hala on Magic Online. And who is, he's a Bay Area player. He's from that same group of players as like Shahar and Luis and, Ricky Sitter.
Oh, right, okay.
And just, a really hard-working player on Magic Online who, is seems to be ready to take that kind of next step up to the Grand Prix and the Pro Tour level.
Now, I'm doing this from memory, so if I get this wrong, forgive me, but I believe he ended up testing with the Wu brothers, Travis and Elliot, and also Martin Goldman-Kirst. I believe they were there were 4 or 5 on that squad. So all of those players are at 1-0. But it is a long, long way back from 0-2. It's being done.
Sure.
But it is super hard.
I believe Paulo Vitor Damaderosa accomplished that in San Juan.
Mm-hmm. But no one wants to be there.
No.
And at currently 0-1 in the feature match area, Shota Yasuoka of Japan, who lost to Rasmus Björklund, he is up against Rafael Levy of France. And Raf Levy, one of the things that people don't know about him, he talked about this with his head shaking a couple of PTs ago. He says, I'm just not a morning person. Because he is one of these guys who sort of sits at 7-4 or 8-4 and then ends up at 12-4.
Right.
And he says, I just get up in the mornings and my brain's mush and I've tried all sorts of different things and sleep patterns and breakfast and no breakfast and exercise and no exercise. I just start slowly. And he's been doing that for more Pro Tours than anyone in history. And he just doesn't have it licked. And so, this is when if you're ever going to play Raf, this is when you want to play him. So those are our feature matches. We'll come back to the draft archetypes as we go along. We're just waiting for word that they're ready to receive us over in the booth. Marshall and Zach waiting there. And I imagine that you're sort of heading towards Modern, looking at some decks there. But the feature match is ready.
Oh,
so
exciting.
with those matches ready to go, let's hand you down to the booth, Zach Hill, and first, Marshall Sutcliffe.
Hello and welcome back to the booth. Marshall Sutcliffe here with Zach Hill. Zach, let's take a look at the players we have here. Ari Lax versus Samuel Estradi. 2 pretty well-established pros here, Ari. On the Pro Tour most of the time, and Samuel Estradi, of course, a Pro Tour champion. Talk to us about Ari.
Well, I mean, actually, the thing about both of the players that's interesting to me at this event is they're both kind of modern specialists, but we're watching them in limited. I talked to Ari before the event, and he said he was really trying to up his limited game because that's where he's encountered obstacles before. We'll see if that proves successful.
All right, looks like we get to see right now because I am told they are ready in the feature match area here for round 2 from Pro Tour Born of the Gods.